From the air we breathe inside our homes to the sprawling cityscapes we inhabit, eco-living is reshaping our world. It's not just about labeling something green and ecological, it's about creating healthier, more sustainable spaces that benefit both people and the planet. Morning, how is this looking? Morning everybody and welcome to 2025. This year is going to be freaking awesome. Now, today I would like to talk about a topic that lights me up and I believe is pretty interesting. And we're talking about eco-living. Now, how to approach eco-living is the question. Well, there are many perspectives on that. So we will be talking about the actual interior of buildings and the quality of life there, meaning we'll be covering some materials as well as the important air quality, and that comes to humidity, temperature, etc. Now, why is this topic important, you might ask? And for that, I will say you do not need to be an environmental engineer or a civil engineer to be interested in that, because we all live somewhere, and in 21st century we spend a lot of time inside buildings actually, and the rest of the time many people spend in cities. So it's the environment that we create that we actually spend most of our time in, and we really need to make sure that it's good for our health. Great, talking about ventilation, I opened the window behind me so that fresh air can come in. And so on this topic, you could take the approach of the normatives. So you could really go after the values like temperature, which should be maybe around depends on the type of the room, but usually somewhere between 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. Also, you can measure CO2 levels, and there's a device that usually does all of these things, and the humidity as well. What I'll say, the normative allows the CO2 levels to go up to 2000 particles per million, which is a terrible number actually. So it's best if you actually have a measuring device and really feel in what feels good to you. In my opinion, you will feel comfortable at around 500, and anything above that is there's the need to ventilate. Talking about ventilation, most buildings do not have a forced ventilation system yet, and there are definitely cases where it doesn't make much sense, but for new builds I would say it's nice to encompass it in the design. In order for the forced ventilation system to be efficient, you have to also have a good envelope of the building, so an airtight, well insulated envelope, and then it allows you to have more control over the air exchange, the parameters that I mentioned, as well as it allows for energy recovery, meaning that the whole system becomes more efficient because the heat from the outtake air actually warms up the intake air so that it's much more efficient then. And you also have the potential for filtration, depending on whether you live in an environment that's not as air clean as this one, for example. You might have issues with that, and with a forced ventilation system you can actually influence the air quality coming into the building. Materials. In a traditional building, you are most likely going to be surrounded by the flooring and the paints of the walls. And so with the flooring, I believe it's best to go with really the traditional materials like wood, boards, and depending on the type of the room actually, or ceramics. Those are the best, although their price may be higher than some alternatives. Now, what is also good is natural linoleum. Cork can be an alternative as well, and you might also experiment with things like bamboo flooring. However, very popular nowadays is the vinyl flooring, and they are usually cheaper. They are usually a pretty good match in terms of the structure and texture to all kinds of different floor types, including wood. However, I would think about what you actually want to be breathing in when you live in that environment. And especially if you combine with an underfloor heating system, you should be aware of the fact that the surface area of that flooring is going to be frequently heated up. And so it's really up to you what kind of material you want to be breathing in. So in my humble opinion, carpets are not the best to put on a floor because it's actually a surface that absorbs all the dust and allergens, and so it definitely requires frequent maintenance, vacuuming. However, still it's just a surface that attracts all of that, and it's better to have a different type of flooring. Well, unless it's a decoratory carpet, of course. Now, in terms of paints, it's great to go after low VOC or zero VOC paints, and paints that are usually made of natural clay, milk protein, or plant oils. Heating, well, this applies to you if you can influence the design of the building or are doing a renovation. And I am a huge advocate for underfloor heating because of the airflow it creates in the room, and that it's much more natural and healthier in my opinion. So standard radiators actually circulate the air quite a lot in the building, in the room, and with underfloor heating, the heat actually rises up evenly across the area surface. So it prevents unnecessary circulation that stirs up the dust, and it's actually much more convenient for a human being to be in that space because, as I said, the temperature is laid out much more evenly, and you actually get the comfort benefit of having warm feet. Now, my favorite one is a central vacuum system, speaking about allergies and dust and all things like that. Now, there was a study that supposedly said a central vacuum system can reduce the amount of dust particles of around 46 to 61% compared to a traditional vacuum. And although the central vacuum system definitely does require an investment and some work to implement it, it's great if you are planning a building or planning a renovation to actually think about it, just running the pipes. You might not have to invest right away in the central vacuum. However, it's great to have the pipes ready so that you might actually deploy the central vacuum system later on. Not only does it actually reduce the amount of dust and doesn't circulate the dust and hot air in the room when you vacuum, it actually saves you from a lot of noise that vacuums usually make. I myself have installed a central vacuum system in the past. It has been working flawlessly for 7 years now, and the one advantage I can provide to you is that it actually requires less maintenance because the actual dust container is much bigger than what usual vacuums have, so you are going to be actually cleaning it less often, and you don't need to buy like brand specific dust bags for the vacuum. Now that was it for the interior of buildings, and now if we develop this idea, there's also the perspective of environment within cities. So that means how we can affect the built environment so that it is actually great for us as a species to live in. And the last but not least, ecological construction. So this is focused mainly on the manufacturing process of buildings and how we can be better at making lower carbon footprint, making less trash, if I say it in this way, producing less waste in terms of the manufacturing process. And then there is the perspective of like designing actually ecological buildings.